Hello, and welcome to Magical Journey Podcast. Strange, unusual, terrifying, all words used to describe demonology and possession. And tonight, that is what our topic is about, the dark reality of possession. First of all, do you believe that demonic possession is real, or is it misunderstood illness? That is a question we've been trying to figure out for years, and to no avail. While many mental health experts have determined that, yes, there are hold on a second, I'm having a issue with Facebook apparently. Actually, you know what? We're just going to keep going. How about that? Many people in the mental health community have, over the years, questioned whether possession is the result of mental illness, or if possession is perhaps some form of manifestation of something even darker. And I feel like at times we have to ask ourselves, in this case, is there something else working that we don't necessarily see, and we don't necessarily understand? One of the best cases in recent modern history that demonstrates to me what mental health issues could be at play here would be the Gary, Indiana demon house, which I feel there was several things that were occurring there, manifestations that occurred there that could have related to something, some serious mental issues, mental health issues. There was the walking on the walls, which I found very interesting, the way that was described and so forth. There was the speaking in strange languages or strange tongues, a lot of manifestations of things that we just can't really put our fingers on as to what was going on, what was really happening. But when we talk about possession, when we talk about the concept of demonology, and in particular, the manifestations that come along the way here, we talk about levitation, for instance, which is one of those things that is very predominant with possession cases. You see lots of stories of people who have actually physically levitated during exorcism, during possession cases. I feel like this is one of those things that, in many cases, we don't really, we can't wrap our heads around. That's the best I can put that. When I look at the possibility, of the different stages of possession, for instance, because there are several stages of possession, and we'll talk about those. The dynamic possession, oppression, and obsession are the three big ones. When we talk about those, I feel like many times we don't we don't fully understand um, what actually is involved with those. I don't think we fully understand um, um, I feel like we don't really understand uh, sometimes the differences, how the differences in manifestations. Um, Suppression is definitely one of those things. Um, Oppression and possession, yeah. The So when it comes to the idea of exorcism, a lot of people have many questions about exorcism. There are people who don't necessarily believe in it. The Catholic Church tries to oppress the idea of exorcism or the belief in exorcism. They will go out of their way to try to silence people from talking about it. And they do not like publicity when it comes to cases of exorcism. Publicity is seen as a very negative thing, something that they don't encourage at all. Uh, in these cases, one of the most universally known cases uh, of possession of exorcism that became a big part of culture and became a big part of uh, our understanding of what possession and exorcism is, of course, was The Exorcist, which was uh, the case of Ronald Doe, um, who um, unfortunately, became the um, I guess you could say what's the word I'm looking for here? Um, the model, if you will, for The Exorcist. Um, the movie The Exorcist. And I'm looking up something right quick to um there was not quite what I was looking for. I was really looking to see what um for some reason his name does not really stick out to me tonight. But I was also expecting it scared the daylights out of me when I was watching it. Yeah, it kinda messed with me too. Um, um, hold on. Rolando, that was what, the 14-year-old boy's name was. That's what I was looking for. Um, when Roland story first hit, uh, the culture of America on the big screen. It was shocking, it was terrifying, it was all the things. A lot of people had there was mixed emotions, mixed reactions to the movie throughout the country. There were protests. That was you know, just an immense amount of reaction to this this phenomena. I feel like you we do know that there's good chunks of the movie that was gathered from a journal that was kept by one of the priests. Um, it was, one of those situations where, you know, we found ourselves in a place of, awe and wonder. We found ourselves questioning a lot of things about, what we believed and what we didn't believe concerning, exorcism and possession, during that time period. I feel like it was an awakening for the country in a lot of ways, and, I feel like there were a lot of times where we just had to, you know, reflect on what how the movie affected us. I feel like we had to reflect on what, what emotion, uh, was triggered from watching this movie or from reading about it or experiencing, um, somebody telling the story. It was one of those situations where, uh, the phenomena literally took the stage of American pop culture at the time, and it took center stage. And when we discuss the concept of exorcism, I think, a lot of times, we have to ask ourselves, what exactly where is it that, you know, that demons come from? Is Did it come from religious, development to explain them? Did religion develop in order to explain demons, or did demons exist, you know, from the very beginning? Is this something that has always been? Is this a situation um, where we understand that things are exactly what they appear to be? One of the things that I do have to wonder too, when it comes to, you know, people, um, the I guess the how theology or the philosophy of demonic possession, do certain places or objects, can they attract demonic entities? I feel like this is one of those questions that we have to ponder on too, is there something about, um, this thing or this place that draws this kind of energy? Is it something about this place, that is a magnet for this type of activity? And I feel like at times we just have to, I guess, not necessarily understand. Realize Linda Blair is such a sweet lady. Around the same age. She kind of made it hard to imagine her as Reagan. Right. That's the thing of this too, is like when we look at the movie The Exorcist and we see this child, that we kind of relate to. We kind of relate to her, as, um, depending on what age you are, when you see the movie, we kind of relate to her as being, our peer, and I know for some of us, watching the movie and seeing somebody who we can relate to, somebody who is, our age, or close to our age, and who, you know, comes from maybe a similar background, from different, an interest that's very similar and so forth. Everything about the character is relatable on some level to us. And then, we're faced with the idea that this character that we can relate to, that we see, um, resonate with us in some way. We see this character under attack by something that we don't understand, and I think our the fear factor there, I think, is very real and very realistic. I think it's one of those things where we have to ask ourselves, you know, are we safe in our own skin? Are we, is do we live in a world uh, that has the potential to be unsafe for us? Obviously, we do live in a world that is not always safe, and obviously, not everything that that manifests in our world is going to be something for us, something that we um, should aspire for or desire for. Um, so let's talk a minute about the differences between demonic possession, oppression, and obsession. So, first of all, possession itself, what there's some stages that possession follows a kind of a what's the word I'm looking for here? A progression, if you will. Um, Oppression being the first stage where something outside of us is causing us anxiety, fear, doubt, a lot of confusion going on, and we begin to ask ourselves, you know, wait a minute, am I really hearing this? Am I really seeing this? Is this really happening to me? What's going on? And so this phase of oppression, we have something outwardly trying to manifest inwardly. We have something that is outside of us that's wanting to control our thoughts, our actions, our words. uh, there's something that's making us feel as if um, we're under attack. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of people, when we start talking about the steps of that lead to genomic possession, I think a lot of people kind of shriek away from that a little bit, um, just out of the sheer abundance of it is pressure. That's the best way I can put it, is a pressure that comes in with those things. Uh, it physically, from the outside inward, feels like we're being pushed in inside. You know what I'm saying? It's there's this moment where we kind of, we feel like we can't breathe. There's no air, and then comes the phase of obsession where you we become the mind grows into what story it was based on. It was a young boy, actually. Yeah, yeah. The story was actually, the true character behind this story was a young boy who was like 15 years old at the time. And and when we talk about, his experience, you know, I he was, first of all, you know, along the lines of the story, the truth behind the story, he was very attached to an aunt of his who was into the esoteric. She worked with Ouija boards and, what we call spirit boards and things like that. She did, she did kind of, I guess you would say, flirt with New Age theology and so forth. And so this aunt passed, and as a result, um, Roland Roland Doe, who was the young man in question, sought to find a way to communicate with the aunt still. He was very he missed the aunt, he was very drawn to her. There was this obsession with trying to, um, keep a connection with her, and that is really what started this progression into, possession, was the desire to continue, um, to have communication with this aunt who had passed, this desire to, hold on to, um, that which was no longer. Um, so one of the things that when we think about this progressive, uh, battle from oppression to possession, um, one of the things that comes to mind, one of the questions that comes to mind is, is exorcism a spiritual battle or is it a psychological ritual? Um, Always strong enough to keep right, right. I feel like that's very much a possibility. Um, exorcism as a spiritual battle is that is along the line of deliverance theology, and I feel like, um, when it comes to, you know, true exorcism, that it is a psychological ritual. It is, but it is also a ritual that can be empowering, so to say. It's a ritual that can lead us to, you know, invoke. I mean, boy, they used also. I'm not enthusiast of spirit. Yeah, I'm not like a really big proponent of spirit boards or any of that. I really don't believe in using them myself personally. I know that the argument is that if you know how to use them correctly and you know how to open and close them correctly, that they are safe. Um, all of us have our thoughts on spirit boards, and quite awesome off quite off yeah, my English tonight. Um, quite honestly, I feel like when it comes to the spirit boards, there is, there's a very good chance that you're, if you will, flirting with the devil in a sense when it comes to using those, because if you do not if you do not use them correctly, if you do not know how to operate them, if you do not know how to close them correctly, I think you can let in things that you really are not prepared to deal with. Uh, I believe that spirits, if they are truly, former human beings that have passed on, I feel like there is a very good chance that when it comes to, working with spirit boards and so forth, that you can trigger things, that are not necessarily going to be in our favor. Um, and that's really the most I'm going to say about that right now. Uh, I do feel like, one of the things that is very interesting to me when it comes to the idea of possession, we have to ask ourselves, why do too many possession cases involve religious imagery and language. Why is there so many cases of possession where you see almost a mockery of the crucifixion? Well, you do see a mockery of the crucifixion. You see a mockery of the divinity of Christ. There's a lot of things that go on during the exorcism that leads one to a place of questioning, is is this thing that we're dealing with, is it leading us down a road of confusion? Is it leading us down a road of sort of an inward spiritual battle? If it is, what does that mean for us in the process of this? And why is this imagery, this mockery, um, going on? What is the end game for this? And I think a lot of times it is to make us question our own path, our own choices, to question our own faith. Is it a place where we're being being pulled to, that will is a place to grow our faith? Is it a place, um, that is going to, that we're going to be taken to, that's going to make us not necessarily lose our faith, but I feel like it is a place that, even though you may not, it's not necessarily a place uh, that is taking us to where we will lose our faith, but I believe is a place where our faith will come under great attack, you know, on an inward and outward level. And I feel like a lot of times, the imagery and the language of exorcism, and possession, I feel like it is a bold attack. Yeah, I agree with you on that. A civil engineer, I feel like asking some questions are really not even necessary. I mean, it's one of those things where, like, the answer should be obvious. Is there anyone who wants to talk? And I mean, we see people asking that a lot, especially in the ghost hunter lives and so forth like that on some of the platforms. Are you real? Another one, um, that I feel is not necessarily a question. Um, why would you want to ask that? Are you real? If it's manifesting, then it's trying to say it's real, at least. Um, and I feel like a lot of times when it comes to a lot of the questions that are asked during these ghost hunter experiences and so forth, I feel like these things are really asked to try to trigger a response. And I don't think it's necessarily going to be helpful one way or the other. The response is not going to be something that, um, it's just not something that I feel like is going to be very fruitful. Um, and one of the things that we have to ask ourselves, when we're talking about possession and um, we're dealing with demons, you know, have you ever experienced something that you would describe as evil rather than just paranormal? You know, is is the thing that we're dealing with, is the thing that is manifesting, is this something that is truly dynamic, or is it something that's just kind of weird, something that we don't understand, something we don't have a full working knowledge of yet, so since we don't have a name for it, we're just going to make it something, um, we're just gonna make it something that we can try to grasp in some way. Um, I think it's very easy for us a lot of times when it comes to the idea of possession and possession and dynamic influences. I think it's very easy for us to, to start searching and try to find some rationalization, for all of these things um, in our minds. And I kind of feel like it's very important for us, you know, as believers, as people, as adults who have some understanding of what the paranormal is, what the spiritual is, what all these things are. I think it's very important for us to try to um, not necessarily label everything, in a nice little package um, to help us understand. Because I think understanding is good. I think it's something that we desire deeply, but I don't think we have to understand every single thing. Um, you know, could one of the questions that I really want to leave for you guys to I don't agree with some of the provoking and disrespect to the spirits. Yeah, that's the other thing too is, you know, I don't really agree with the provoking and the disrespect that some of the ghost hunters use. Um, I think when it comes to dealing with these entities, whatever they are, I think it's very important for us to show that level of respect that we would show any individual. And some of the things they do and say, you know, come across as being very unkind, very provoking, and I feel like there's a certain amount of, you there's a certain area, there's a line that we need to not cross when it comes to dealing with, you know, spiritual beings, whether they are, whether we feel that they are demons or what. Um, so why do some exorcisms involve knowledge the possessed person should not know? That's one of the questions that I feel like is very important for us to you know acknowledge, and to try to understand. You know, why is it some of the exorcism involve knowledge that possessed persons shouldn't know? What is it what is the benefit of the possessed person knowing this? What is the thing? What is the, I guess, the climatic um, result of somebody who's possessed knowing this information? And could some possessed cases actually be non-human intelligence misidentified as demons? I think that's another problem that we run up against when it comes to trying to determine whether someone is actually possessed or not. Is this a demon? Are we misidentifying something here? Is there something that we're not seeing? You know, are we trying to make the box comfortable for ourselves? So if we call it this thing, and in our mind we accept this as that thing, that somehow this is going to be okay. It's going to make it easier for us to accept and deal with and work with. So is identifying something that's non-human intelligence as a demon, is that making us feel like we have authority over it, power over it? Is it something that's going to put us in a position of power, basically? Is that what claiming this thing as what it may or may not be is? Is it a step into being authority over it, or is it a step toward actually allowing it to oppress us to a sense, even? Because I feel like um, a lot of times, you know, what we don't always understand, is a very good likelihood that whatever this is that's causing this experience, um, you know, could be possibly feeding on our fear or our trauma, or could it be something that is right? Sometimes I think entities seem to do things that they know will blow your mind. I think that's very true. I think, when it, again, are they trying to trigger fear into you? And why are they trying to trigger that fear? Is fear something they're feeding off of? Is fear, something that they're using to um, promote a sense of oppression so that they can take the next step, the plunge? Um, I think a lot of times we have to ask ourselves, you know, if this entity is feeding off of my fear, and if this is giving it control and power over me, what how can I how can I counteract that? How can I counterattack that? Um, is there something that I can do, that's going to ensure my success over this? Physically change into how, yeah. A lot of times that's another thing when someone's attacked by somebody who's possessed or potentially possessed, there are physical changes that happen with the person. I think the Gary, Indiana case, you know, the children shows signs of, hostility and aggression. Facial features changed, voices changed, physical characteristics. There were things that happened, like the walking up the wall, backwards, or whatever that happened there. Created a sense of um, it created a sense of fear. It created a sense of oppression to the caseworker, to the point, excuse me, where she refused to go back. She was like, "I'm done. I'm out of here. Don't want anything else to do with this." Um, one of the things that I want to ask you guys, is: do demons need permission to enter somebody's life, or can they just take control? You know, I feel like that's one of the big questions that we need to ask ourselves. You know, is this something where these entities need the permission, you know, we can't come in until you invite us in kind of thing. Is this one of those things where, um, if they don't get asked in, if they're not invited in, they're not allowed to take control? Do we have to succeed our control over to them in some way? I guess is the big question here. You know, is there something, is there a switch that we have to flip in order to make it happen, make it so? You know, at what point is the victim of possession, you know, succeeding control over to the demon, you know, or the spirit? Is there something, is that even a thing really? Are people really um, in that mindset where they can just go, "Hey, you know, I'm done here. You can have it. You take the wheel." You know, and you at what point, if that is the case, you know, at what point can we regain control? Is there a point where you can regain control? Is there a point where you can say, "You know what? I'm not okay with this. I'm not okay with you having authority over me. I'm not okay with giving you um, my authority, you know, over you." So I think when it comes to, you know, the question of permission, you know, I think we have to wonder, you know, again, if we can do that, if we can give permission, can we take back that authority and that permission? If so, you know, what does that say for that which is trying to take control over us? You know, where does that place that being in the scale of, you know, having authority, and is there any authority? Right, and that's one of the things too that's very interesting about cases of possession is a lot of times the things that manifest are almost the opposite, or is the opposite a lot of times of what the person who is being attacked is. In this case, a female, you know, coming under the influence of possession, you know, having a male voice, no memory of the incident later, confusion, a lot of things that happen, you know, taking on male qualities. Uh, you know, we see this in various cases of possession. Uh, you know, and so one of the things that I wonder about, and that I would like to ask you guys, is if a real exorcism was happening in the next room, would you watch it or would you run? You know, what would be our reaction to being faced with something, you know, a situation of deliverance, you know, a situation of spiritual warfare? You know, would we naturally want to, they can be susceptible to allowing themselves to be possessed. Yeah, I believe that can be the case very much. If somebody is without love in their life, um, then there tends to be, you know, that susceptibility to, you know, giving in and giving over, so to say. And I think that is a very big possibility when it comes to possession. Personally, I think that is a very a big thing, uh, part of the equation, you know, is is this somebody who, who had strong family ties, who had strong spiritual ties? Do they have a strong relationship with, other believers? Do they have, a strong relationship with their faith? What relationship do they have, with God? And I think those things are very important to understand when it comes to spiritual warfare in particular. I think it's very important for us to understand that people can be more susceptible if they are bogged down, if they are, feeling a sense of outsideness, if that makes sense. Um, I think a lot of times, you have to approach the situation very carefully and very much with thought when it comes to, you know, what has this person experienced? What are the factors that could lead this person to giving in and giving over? Is there something about the person under attack that would lead them to a place where they would give in and say, I just can't anymore. I can't do this. I don't want to do this. I don't want to fight, and they succeed their authority. They give their authority over to that thing that's trying to take possession of them. Um, You know, and one of the things that I want to ask too is if exorcism works, what exactly is happening in that moment? If let's say we're in the throes of spiritual warfare, we're in the throes of trying to command, authority over an entity that's unwelcome, that is trying to attack and oppress and possess somebody, and we're standing strong in our authority, we're standing strong, on hollow ground, and we're saying, basically, you're done. And we're saying, this is it, this is the line, you're not crossing it, this is the box you're not getting out of, you're done. And by the authority that we have, the authority given to us through the Holy Spirit, the authority given to us through the name of Jesus. Are these things? What are these things? First of all, and how? What exactly is happening in that moment? Is the energy? Is the power of our faith diminishing the energy of this entity or this individual or whatever you want to call it? Is there something within us that is able to overcome that which we're battling? Are we battling, a fallen entity, a fallen angel? Are we battling, a demon? Are we battling, a principality or something, that we have not been able to name per se, but we know is there? Are we battling this thing um, with full authority? And what exactly does that authority, in what is that is the work of that authority? I guess that's what I'm really asking there. Is this thing that's happening in the moment, is this the will and power of God, or is this our personal will and power acting on this entity? Is something within us pushing this entity away or out? Um, there are many different variations of how people face the same things often. No care for love is the case. Then they're they're lost anyway. Possession may be so. If no manifestation, okay. Yeah, and see, this is one of the things that is very important, I feel, to understand about when it comes to, you know, the question of does exorcism work? Or if it does work, what what is really happening here? Is this the power and will of God? Is this something that the individual, the exorcists themselves, is manifesting from their own personal power? Is this something that does not fit into the box, a tight, nice little box of our understanding? Is it something that um, our words doesn't necessarily hold power to? I guess is what I'm really trying to say here. Exactly what is it? What is the thing? What is happening at that time that's creating the final release or um, the final end to the conflict? You so I feel like these are all and again, let's I want to throw this in there because this is a big thing when it comes to physical phenomena in possession. We see this a lot. Why do some possession cases involve physical phenomena like levitation or superhuman strength? I think this is one of the things that we need to address, and we need to ask ourselves. We need to ask, you know, in we need to ask in good faith. Is why is it that some of these cases, a lot of these cases, and why is this manifestation even happening? What is the point of it? What exactly is happening here? Or what's going to happen here as a result of these manifestations of physical phenomena, such as levitation? Is it something that's designed to, you accentuate the oppression of the believers and the non-believers? Is it something that's going to excite, you a sense of spiritual awe within people? Is it something that's going to cause confusion and cause believers to kind of go, "Oh, I'm not ready for this. I'm not prepared for this. This is above my pay grade. What am I doing here?" That kind of thing. Is it a situation where you these physical phenomena are designed to somehow lead us to the final ends of ultimate possession of, um, is it something that's going is it that final straw really is what I'm going for here. You know, what what is this leading to? What's the significance of it? And why is it so important that these things happen? Why is it so important that we have physical phenomena and manifestation of supernatural strength, you know, as a form of suppression? And is it leading up to the obsession of, a genomic entity being involved? Is this something that's going to put us in the place where we say, oh, this has to be this thing because this thing is only the only thing that could be doing this. This entity is the only thing that could cause this type of manifestation. And I think it's very real, uh, that we learn to accept that maybe our perception of these things, our fear, feeding on that fear. Um, I think this is very much something that when we get into the manifestations, we get into, you know, the the things that push us down that spiral in the warfare. Sorry. Um, I feel like we have to ask ourselves in those final moments of battle, in those final moments of becoming either the victor or the victim. I think we need to ask ourselves, you know, what is is the outcome of this? What is the out, or is this manifestation going to lead to a desirable outcome, or is it going to create the ends to the means that's going to lead us to a path of failure, of allowing our fear to succumb to the desire of the entity involved? And I think that's where we have to. Wow, I think it's very important for us to understand, in the final analysis, that all of the things that take place during possession, during the exorcism, during the rite, you know, they ultimately will lead us into one direction or the other. They're going to either lead us into success or they're going to lead us into failure. Now, the question then becomes, what is success and what is failure? In the case of the believer, obviously success is uh, not only driving out the negative entity, but standing in your authority and having the strength and the faith to release, and to boldly stand in that authority. I think it's very important for us, for a believer who is for a believer who is in the throes of a spiritual battle like that. I think it's very important for the believer to, you to fully and consciously accept, you their ability to be the vessel for which their faith manifests. And I think when it comes to the final, the closing battle, I think for the believer, obviously the calling it success, calling it good, is the victory to cast out that demon and that spirit, and the proclaiming victory in Christ over that oppressive energy or that oppressive spirit. Um, so ultimately, the end game is accepting and not questioning. Yeah, it's not right, right. You don't want to the the end game of the believer, the end game of that person who is sort of the I guess the general of the leading army, so to say, is to stand in the place of victory, to stand in the place of, acceptance in their their authority, and to fully be able to understand that if I have control, if I'm given authority and I have control to cast this thing out, and I cast this thing out in the name of Jesus, and I cast this thing out by the authority of Christ, I think that is the ultimate. Um, I feel like that is the ultimate the ultimate phase of victory. Is that what I'm trying to say here? In the battle itself. Um, when it comes to the question of possession, or the question of exorcism, or the question of demonic control, I think it's very important for us to understand, all of the different facets of that experience. I think it's very important for us to, um, soul search and find our belief, our true understanding and belief, and what these things are. I feel like when it comes to trying to understand, is demonic possession real, or is it a mental illness? All the things about possession and demonology and all the questions that come about, I feel like it's very important for us to have a full grasp of what we truly believe and what we truly feel, you know, what we're willing to accept in our lives as our truth. And I know I feel like I went around in circles with some of this tonight. Uh, I was really hoping to have my guest on with me. Obviously, that did not happen for whatever reason. Um, it happens from time to time. I did what I could to try to um, entice him to come on tonight. Obviously, that did not work, but it's okay. And next week we will have on. Um, who do we have on next week? I believe I have Ashley coming back. Actually, Ashley Hilt coming back next week. Um, Let me see. I do. Next week, I have Ashley Hilt coming back to talk to us about Mothman and Point Pleasant. And thank you. I appreciate that. Um, Honestly, some of these nights like this, it's a struggle. It's a real struggle. I'm not going to lie about it. Ashley and I are going to be discussing Mothman, Point Pleasant, and all the craziness that surrounded that experience that led to um, the Silver Bridge disaster. We will be talking about Indrid Cole some, who was kind of the co-conspirator with Mothman, I guess you could say. And the following week after that, we will have Steve Ward on, who is a member of the staff of the Mothman Museum. So we got 2 weeks of really, really strong interviews with really strong people dealing with a really strong subject of Mothman. So look forward to that. Remember, I love you guys. I love your support. I appreciate each one of you. And may your journey always be magical.
for so long to see when you come back to me. Through the wars and battles that were lost, we're born again, it's you and me. The rest is history. Past lives. Past lives. Did we dance together on different floors in 1500 or 1504? We must have been lovers, we must have been something in our past lives.